Welcome to Evangelicalish, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of the American Evangelical Church, deconstruction, faith, and God's love through it all. Join us for these episodes live on our Evangelicalish YouTube page on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central, and 6 o'clock Pacific. Let's journey together.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to Evangelicalish. We're glad to be with you. I'm Paul.
Am I here? I'm April. I froze.
Yeah, she froze. No, yeah, you froze again too. And I'm Jeremy, and I'm not frozen, but April keeps like getting stuck in space.
Am I here? Can
you are.
See me?
You're here now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, my internet is just awful. Anyway. Hi, everybody. I almost feel like we should start. I just ruined it.
It's those new cool, freaky lights you got that are doing it.
Oh yeah, Beecher was very excited. We've got a green light over here. We've got, I guess that's pink or purple.
Yeah, magenta.
He was very excited about these. He did my whole setup. So shout out to Beecher. He was like, "I'm going to watch this because I want you to shout me out." So I'm like, "Okay."
Stage manager. Just
shout out to Beach.
Man.
Yeah, shout out to Beecher, my partner, my spouse.
Nice, and I saw that you were using tissue to cover up things so he didn't get tempted over the holidays, which was good.
Oh yes. You have to be so careful.
Jeremy may not have seen that video, and he's wondering what the heck we're talking about.
I guess I missed that. I was like, "The heck are y'all talking about?"
Beecher was on a spoof with me, or a skit over or just a week ago, I guess. We were like the influencer Christian couple, and it was just me going into a house with tissue and covering up things just within a house while we're traveling so that it wouldn't cause him to stumble, because men are visual creatures, if you didn't know. So like I was covering up like his sister's bridal portrait because she had shoulders exposed, and some double candles because you never know what those could look like, or we do know, just a bunch of really
like some angel figurine.
It could look phallic, or I don't know, red flag.
Yeah, I mean, men are so visual, like they can make anything sexual. So you just have to protect your poor little eyes,
Well,
the thing that's always, this is like totally off topic, but us women are supposed to let men lead, like be above us in marriage, but yet they can't control themselves when it comes to boobs or anything.
Exactly.
I don't know why I went like super high pitched on boobs, but anyway.
Very dramatic.
Yeah, boobs.
Sorry. But that's how most men do that in their brain. They're like, "Well, the other day I was working on some math with the quadratic equation. Boobs."
Yeah, this is totally derailed. Like they can't control themselves.
Can't control themselves. Yeah.
It reminds me of our heretical conversation this morning about the fact that Jesus didn't follow the Billy Graham "don't sit with women" rules.
Or Billy Graham, Mike Pence.
The Mike Pence "don't sit with women" rule.
Yeah, Jesus didn't do that. Jesus was all about hanging out with women, one-on-one.
April is deconstructed cussing, but not boobs.
Yeah, boobs.
Oh, that's really good. Oh man,
nice Beach Squad. All right, let's get into the show. In the Bible, Jesus said, "Beware the leaven of the Pharisees," which is hypocrisy. And apparently Republicans, particularly Christian ones, haven't been able to do that because, hypocrite, thy name is Ted Cruz. And if you saw him on Fox News this week, you know what I mean. Watch this pathetic little mealy mouth man try to keep himself in the good graces of the Fox News crowd. This is a clip from the Tucker Carlson show this week, which we try to avoid that show at all cost. But it starts with Ted Cruz on January 6th talking about how terrorists tried to take over our country, then massively apologizing for it.
We are approaching a solemn anniversary this week. And it is an anniversary of a violent terrorist attack on the Capitol, where we saw the men and women of law enforcement demonstrate incredible courage, incredible bravery, risk their lives to defend the men and women who serve in this Capitol.
Senator, can we pause it right there real quick?
Appreciate that.
What's that?
Senator, thanks so much.
Can we just pause it right there for a second?
Okay.
Like, can we just say that, like, if he had just stopped right there, like, I would have some small semblance of respect for Ted Cruz. I mean, am I wrong for that?
No, you're not wrong, because he does this regularly. But I mean, we'll play this clip.
Yeah.
But do you also remember back in the 2016 Republican convention? This was like right after his feud with Trump. He, on the convention floor in his speech, did not endorse Trump. Everyone told him to endorse Trump, and he didn't. He said, "Vote your conscience," and he got booed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then now he's like one of Trump's biggest sucker-uppers.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to
Anyway,
call it.
I'm sorry, but like that was really spot on. And to hear that from a Republican, you're like, just any Republican, I don't care if it's Ted Cruz, whoever it is, right? Like, that's like, wow, way to be a mature human being.
Okay.
Like, that's
No, and that's totally okay, because even as for all the reasons wrong that Donald Trump is telling people to take the vaccine, I'm still happy he's telling people to take the vaccine.
exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When there's an old saying, when a dog is playing checkers, you don't question his strategy. You just say, isn't that awesome that a dog's playing checkers? And so when a Republican gets it right every once in a while, let's applaud that they get it right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But Ted is about to get it very, very
I'm going to
wrong.
rewind it a few seconds because Jeremy was talking over
I'm
it.
sorry. I was just like, I really. God.
And is it you, Tucker? I mean, whose face do you want to punch more, Tucker's or Ted Cruz? That's
Ted Cruz for sure. But but Tucker.
I don't
obviously
know.
is-
all right. Here we go. Here we go.
To defend the men and women who serve in this Capitol.
Senator Cruz was game enough to come on tonight. We appreciate that. He joins us now. Senator, thanks so much for coming on. So I guess I mean, there are a lot of dumb people in the Congress. You're not one of them. I think you're smarter than I am. And you never use words carelessly. And yet you called this a terror attack when by no definition was it a terror attack. That's a lie. You told that lie.
That's a lie.
And I'm wondering why you did.
Well, Tucker, thank you for having me on. When you aired your episode last night, I sent you a text shortly thereafter and said, listen, I'd like to go on because the way I phrased things yesterday, it was sloppy and it was frankly dumb. And
I don't buy that. Whoa. I don't buy that. Look, I've known you a long time, since before you went to the Senate. You're a Supreme Court contender. You take words as seriously as any man who's ever served in the Senate. And every word you repeated that phrase. I do not believe that you used that accidentally. I just don't.
So, Tucker, as a result of my sloppy phrasing, it's caused a lot of people to misunderstand what I meant. Let me tell you what I meant to say. What I was referring to are the limited number of people who engaged in violent attacks against police officers.
Oh,
I think
brother.
we both agree that if you assault a police officer, you should go to jail. That's who I was talking about. And the reason the phrasing was sloppy is I have talked dozens, if not hundreds of times. I've drawn a distinction. I wasn't saying that the thousands of peaceful protesters supporting Donald Trump are somehow terrorists. I wasn't saying the millions of patriots across the country supporting President Trump are terrorists. And that's what a lot of people have misunderstood that comment.
Wait a second, but hold on. What you just said doesn't make sense. So if somebody assaults a cop, he should be charged and go to jail. I couldn't agree more. We've said that for years. But that person's still not a terrorist. How many people have been charged with terrorism on January 6th? Like, why'd you use that word? You're playing into the other
Douche on
side
douche crime.
characterization that, as Joe Kent just explained, allows them to define an entire population
All right.
as foreign combatants.
I think we
And you
get
know
so
that.
here.
Why'd you do it?
Is Ted Cruz genuflecting to the Fox News audience because he had the guts for 1 second to tell the truth
Well,
about
then he
the
goes
January
on to
6th
just
insurrection.
apologize and like say that he was wrong and all this groveling was how some people put
No, it
it.
was groveling. Yeah, it absolutely was groveling. Oh my gosh, that was disturbing.
Can we just pause for a second and how Tucker Carlson's just like waiting to talk face. He just like stays frozen and like it looks like there's just nothing.
He gets that really high voice.
He looks like there's just nothing, like he's just so dumbfounded all the time. Anyway.
Tucker, forgive me for I have sinned.
It's like, I know, seriously.
So this is Ted Cruz, who, by the way, remember when Texas was in a grid shutdown and people were dying and freezing to death, went to Mexico.
Yep.
And then came back and said his daughters made him do it.
Put it on his daughters.
Yes. And then
Dad, we're cold. Just take us somewhere warm.
He has
He literally
no
said that.
spine. He does not own anything. I mean, even back when in the primaries back in 2016, when Trump took personal shots against his wife, which he actually, during the primaries, before Trump won the primary, he was somewhat more combative with Trump, which good, but I still could not stand him. But just like he totally has turned his back on like standing up for his family to save his own face and has thrown his own family under the bus.
Yeah. No, old Cancun Cruz.
Can Cruz.
Can Cruz. Yeah.
My wife and I got invited to go to the National Prayer Breakfast, I think in 2014. And we ended up sitting at a table with Ted and his dad, Raphael, who is a Baptist minister, who apparently, according to Trump, also killed John Kennedy. I'm not sure how that worked, but and Raphael Cruz was an awful person when we sat next to him at that breakfast. He came and spoke in Fresno a couple of weeks later at a church here, and how did Christianity get married with republicanism, and then now it has become this spineless, hypocritical, believe anything Trump says bullshit that we see there from Ted Cruz? How did we get here?
I don't know. I feel like it's something that repeatedly has been happening over the last several years. Like Republicans, at least in Trumpism, for the most part, seems to be the only one immune to, like, Trump's the only one that's allowed to kind of go off the narrative and not face consequences for it, for whatever reason. But for the most part, they're almost becoming a monolith where you have to agree and recite the exact same narrative across the board. And if there's any deviance of it, like, because we have seen moments of courage and we have seen moments of different, like Mitch McConnell. Was it when Trump was his first or second impeachment, maybe the second impeachment about January 6th? Mitch McConnell gave a very scathing speech to Trump that he then walked back. Lindsey Graham has given very scathing speeches about January 6th and Trump, which he's walked back. And
Kevin McCarthy gave a speech and then went to Mar-a-Lago to beg forgiveness from Trump because he wants to be Speaker of the House one day.
Yeah, so you see these people, which makes you know that a lot of these Republicans know deep down that, like, they know deep down what the right thing is to do and don't do it anyway. Or do it and then realize what that's going to cost them. And so, like, just throw out all integrity to backtrack it so they can keep their jobs at the end of the day.
It's kissing the ring, right? Is what it is. And, I have never, I can't remember in the history of our country, and certainly not in my lifetime, a defeated one-term president still being the face and the voice and the leader of a party. Like, that is absolutely insane. Like, once George Herbert Walker lost to Clinton in 92, he was no longer the face of the Republican Party. People weren't turning to him and asking for his advice on things. Jimmy Carter was no longer the face or the voice of the Democratic Party when he lost to Reagan. I mean, like, this is absolutely insane. Just on its face, like just at its surface level, it's insane. But the circus is so much more crazy under the tent. Like, you think it's a good time when you get your ticket and you're walking in. Wait until you get inside and they get the lions and the tigers out. It's absolutely, it's just nuts. Elephants walking on balls and everything else. It's a clown circus. Like, it's absolutely insane. And for these guys to like not only be able to look and say, like, so many of them have called it the insurrection a terrorist attack or domestic terrorism and then backed up off of it, or because I remember Mitch McConnell the night that they reconvened on January 6th and how scathing some of his comments were directed at the president. And then, just give it some time. And he's kissing ass to Trump just a couple weeks later.
Yeah.
Ted Cruz has no balls. That's the problem.
No.
And the issue is that none of these guys do. None of them do. And at some point, like, when are we going to quit allowing these guys who have no intestinal fortitude, have no conviction? And that's really the biggest problem for me, I think, at the end of the day, is an extreme lack of conviction. I will say, it's like Trey Gowdy went on Fox News earlier this week and said, made a comment, something to the effect of, I would rather be consistent and wrong than I would change my opinion.
Yeah.
Right. Which is insane. But
He just
at
said
least
the quiet part out loud.
yeah, he said the quiet part out loud. And so some of these guys who were like, whoa, time out. Like, this feels really uncomfortable because they know they're going to get Liz Cheney'd. Right. They know that they're going to get bounced out of their leadership positions. They know that they're going to get, ran. I mean, James Langford is being contested here in Oklahoma, and MAGA money is pouring into this crazy pastor out of Tulsa. And James Langford is one of the most conservative senators in the country. And he's being contested by a guy who's like running on election fraud and, just all sorts of crazy stuff, anti-vax, whatever. It is no longer a party; it's a cult. Like, it's
when you can elect someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene and she wins.
Yes.
I mean, like,
old Jewish space
her.
laser herself.
Or actually, full offense to her. Like, she is actually off her rockers. And,
No
Jewish
question.
space lasers. It's like, and said that seriously.
And said it seriously. And that's like, there are so many candidates across the country. I mean, like I said, we're experiencing it here in Oklahoma. There are candidates all across the country popping up just like that, just as radical, just as extreme. And they are gaining traction because these people have lost their ever-loving minds.
It's a cult.
It's the danger of Christian nationalism and the belief that imposing Christianity into civil law is so important for God's plan to exist on earth that any means necessary to get there is okay. And so for Ted Cruz, I mean, listen, if you're a senator, like, there's a reason it's called the upper house. There are only 100 of you in the whole country.
That's exactly right.
You have 6-year terms, and he has a can't lose state that he's in. He's a powerful guy. And he's groveling to Tucker Carlson because the right-wing Christians out there will kill you if you don't go along with what Tucker Carlson has to say. Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity run the Republican Party as much as anybody else does.
And OAN and Newsmax.
Yep.
Like, because they have absolutely pushed out everybody else over at Fox because they think they're too liberal. Like, at what day did you think Fox and Friends would be under fire for being, liberal?
Well, and Fox got in trouble for being the first network to declare Arizona for Biden. There was a guy named Stu Stevens that wrote a book called "It Was All a Lie," and he's a Republican operative who talked about being in the room when the Republican Party decided we're going to use abortion, we're going to use dog whistles, and that's how we're going to get white people to vote for us. That's how we're going to get white Christians to vote Republican. And Ronald Reagan suddenly became this right-wing anti-abortion extremist, and Christians are being manipulated and led around by the nose by a TV network of not very bright guys because imposing Christianity on the country is our end, and any means to get there, even Donald Trump or Ted Cruz, is okay.
Yeah. I will say, to Trump's credit, not that he really, I mean, he's not doing it for good reasons, but he was just on OAN this week saying, basically calling out the Republicans that won't admit that they got the booster. And he's like, they got the booster, but they're dodging the question because they're gutless. Like, just say you got the booster. The vaccine's great. And like, he's getting a lot of pushback on that somewhat, but he just seems like above the fray. Like,
of course, when he was on NPR this week and got pressed on election fraud, he hung up. He
Yeah,
hung up in the middle of the
he's
interview.
also gutless,
Oh.
if we're honest. I mean, he wouldn't stop the insurrection. Like Trump is
Not
a
only-
terrible person, but
Not only would he not stop the insurrection, like let's call it what it is, okay? He called for the insurrection and assured everyone at that speech that morning he was going to be there with them. He was
Mhm.
marching to the White House with them.
yeah.
And he fell off the earth and went into a hole somewhere and just couldn't be bothered.
By the way, can we just sit for a moment with the fact that a sitting president said the previous president tried to overthrow the country in a speech this week? One of our presidents said his predecessor tried to overthrow the country, and it's hardly even news.
Hardly news.
In the Trump world, he just tried to overthrow the country. Shoot, he's tried to do that several times. Why do we care about that? But it's huge that a president called out his predecessor for insurrection.
But the people that voted for Trump don't care. They literally
No,
don't
they
care.
don't
They either believe a conspiracy which a lot of them do, sadly. But most of them just don't care. They want to keep their party in power that benefits them. But honestly, it's hard to attack someone's intelligence because you can't help how educated that you are. I mean, in this point, when you have the internet, you can, and people are feeding off of that, but with obscure YouTube videos and whatnot. But I do know that there are some people out there that really just don't have access to proper education. So that's part of the problem. But Trump feeds off of the uneducated. Like he's literally has said that before. So a lot of his base just isn't intelligent enough to see what a scammer he is. For example, I've talked many times about like the text that Trump sends out from it's not really an official campaign at this point because he hasn't announced that he's running. So he gets to pocket all this money. But he will literally send out texts that are like, you won a free Let's Go Brandon yard sign. This is an actual thing. You won a free Let's Go Brandon yard sign. So then you click it.
Gosh, I've been wanting one of those.
So I click the link and then it says, please contribute like $35 to claim your free Let's Go Brandon yard sign. It's like I don't even know how, and then he'll send out surveys. And here's an actual question from a survey that I got recently, just because I think it's hilarious. This is an official Trump survey that he sends to people. And this one was specifically about his Arizona rally because he wanted to poll people on what he should talk about and what they think is important in the country, blah, blah, blah. This is an actual question on a Trump survey. It says, how would you rate the state of our nation right now? Terrible, horrible, very bad, or all of the above? That is an actual question. So like no wonder their polling numbers are like, sir, everybody loves you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
100% of people love you.
Do you approve of Donald Trump's candidacy in 2024? Yes, absolutely yes, definitely yes, or all of the above.
I know.
Here's my struggle with it's dumb people following Trump is that's an easy dismissal. I actually know very smart people that have been taken in by Trumpism,
And that's fair. It's
the end time stuff. And I think it's a danger if we say, oh, only stupid people are falling for this, because I know very smart people that either for some reason feel like God's going to be mad at them if they don't vote Republican and don't vote for Trump, because abortion is everything. And so I just want to tell people, like, God's not going to be mad at you if you say, hey, this guy is a terrible man. And you may even say, like, I don't like the Democrats. I'm not a Democrat, but I cannot be a part of a party that looks like Ted Cruz doing that. Or fair. Kevin McCarthy doing what he's doing. You know, these guys lying to do anything to get power is not Christian. It is not Christ-like. And there's nothing that looks like Christ about it. And yes, there are big problems on the left and the Democratic side, but I don't see them claiming that God requires you to be a part of their party to go to heaven. And the other party does. And that's my problem with this side over that side.
Well, I think it's twofold, as in like in the Christian evangelical circles, you have that pressure to vote for Trump, to vote Republican. You have spiritual manipulation and end times talk, and there's other things going in outside of your intelligence that are bigger than you that you know,
And
that affect,
pastors flat out saying it from the pulpit that
right,
Christians have
Yes.
to vote for Trump.
right,
Yep.
right. And I definitely did not mean to insinuate that you know, you're dumb if you vote for Trump. Like, I do think a big part of his base that got him elected may not be the most intelligent, just based on how he markets. But you are right. There are definitely brilliant people but I also think a lot of the more intelligent ones outside of Christian evangelical spaces vote for Trump because that's more money in their pocket.
You know, Kristen Dumais, who wrote Jesus and John Wayne, I keep coming back to this point. And when she said it, I had her on a podcast over a year ago, and I wasn't sure I agreed when she said it, but now I know. She said Christians didn't hold their nose and vote for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is exactly what they've been wanting as a president for a long, long time. And I used to disagree with that, but it's clear to me that Trump and Ted Cruz and Kevin McCarthy are what Christians want in their leaders.
Well,
Yeah.
their characters. No, that's okay. Their characters were always that way, right? Like, I think probably what has happened is not that, you know, we've gotten Republicans who are more extreme and stuff like that over the last several years. It's been the same Republicans. The problem is that Trump enabled them to really do the stuff they want to do and really be who they want to be. And so that's ultimately been the problem. And I think we talked about this pre-show. Was my concern is that Trump, who is not a very good public speaker, does not sound super intelligent himself,
not smart,
addressing, you know, the media or anybody else, right? Like, if you can't answer, you know, if you can't give like the company answer about January 6th or whatever, you know, without hanging up on NPR, like, you just, you know, you're not there. And so my concern is now the blueprint and the roadmap has been laid out to how can we incite half the country to just be absolutely batshit crazy. The blueprint has been laid out. So what happens when somebody a little bit smarter than Trump with a little bit more salesman inside of them happens to come along? I think that scares me to death, to be honest.
Yeah. And I think Trump, the one thing he is a con man and a marketer. And I think he saw the pathway to do what he's doing, and he jumped on it. He's like, I can lead these people around by the nose. All I have to say is Supreme Court justices and abortion, and I'm a Christian and 2 Corinthians, and they're mine. And he has fully taken advantage of a Christian American church that has eaten the leaven of the Pharisees at a very high level.
I think a lot of people that vote too, like most people that I know that vote, they're not super political. They vote for the party that their church votes for, or that their family votes for, or just like I have a confession to make. When I lived in Texas and I was 24, I think, whenever, I don't know, there was some Senate race, and I voted for Ted Cruz. And I didn't even know anything about Ted Cruz. I just voted for him because everyone was like, oh yeah, you should definitely vote for Ted Cruz. And at that point, I would only vote Republican because that's just what I was always taught. So, like, I do think a lot of it is just you vote for the party that you're taught. And when you grow up evangelical and you're in evangelical spaces, the party that you vote for is Republican. And it's just a matter of fact.
Well, and let's not forget that Trump literally told David Letterman in an interview one time, if I ever run for president, I'm going to run as a Republican because they're dumb.
Right.
I mean,
right. He literally laid out his plan and then did that plan. And I actually thought when that video surfaced, it was like, oh, he's a goner now. No one cared.
When that video surfaced, when the Access Hollywood tape surfaced,
there were hundreds of
McCain's
moments where
not
I
a hero.
thought, oh, he's done
McCain's
now.
not a hero. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and then the classic, I could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and my approval rating would go up, has proven to be the most prophetic thing that's been said in a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Jeez.
so I do want to move on to our
We have
next
more of a
topic.
Ted Cruz topic, don't we?
We do slightly, and we had talked ahead of time
good.
about whether or not we should talk about this because it does involve Ted Cruz's daughter. So I'm just going to say what happened because it's public knowledge, but then we're going to talk about this issue, but not about her if that
at
makes
all.
sense.
No,
Yeah.
she's a child.
There's a reason she is 13 is trending
Yes.
on Twitter right now.
Yeah. So if you don't know, Ted Cruz's 13-year-old daughter recently went on TikTok and made a video saying how she mostly disagrees with her husband. Gosh, she mostly disagrees with her dad's politics. And even did and this was kind of funny. She had a Christmas photo that she showed where she was wearing a crop top, and that Ted Cruz made had someone Photoshop the photo so that the shirt covered her belly so that she looked more modest for the constituents. That's a sidebar. But what happened is she had her pronouns in her bio, which is a huge trigger for Republicans. If you didn't know that, they do not like pronouns. I get on the receiving end of a lot of hate.
Not even he?
No, because why would you have to say that?
Yeah, it should be a given.
You're just promoting debauchery. That was a direct quote stitch from a guy that said that about the fact that I had pronouns. You're just promoting debauchery.
Cool,
anyway, because I said I'm a she, her. Anywho, so she had pronouns in her bio and bi. So she had bi in her profile. And so someone asked her in one of her videos, "Are you bi? I see in your profile that you're bi. Like, does your dad know?" And she replied, like, "No, he doesn't. I'm nervous to tell him, but I think he would be okay with it." And someone had screenshotted that. I don't know exactly what media outlet ran with it, but now there's headlines everywhere that Ted Cruz's daughter came out as bi, which technically it was public, but she
got outed.
She was pretty much outed. So I have a problem with people being outed because of just people that I know that have had that happen to them, and it can be very traumatizing, especially only being 13. She is completely in that household under her parents' rule, and Ted Cruz doesn't seem like the type of person that's going
and
to
newsflash, this may be a shocker, but Christians can be cruel sometimes on social media.
Yeah, so she has since gone private. So we do want to talk about this issue in general with Christian parents and having kids that come out to them somewhere in the LGBTQ, one of the letters, as an alphabet mafia. But let's do a mid-roll and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Okay, the mid-roll went away.
Did it go away? Do I need to bring it back?
When you went away, it went away. Here, I've got the old one. I'll put it up real quick.
Ah, poop.
Are you loving Evangelical-ish? Follow us to catch all the latest content and encouragement. You can check us out on TikTok by following @Evangelical-ish or subscribe on YouTube by searching Evangelical-ish. That's Evangelical with an ISH. And don't forget to catch our live streams each and every single Wednesday night on YouTube at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, and 6 Pacific. And now, back to the Evangelical-ish podcast.
So now we're going to have to put the explicit on the show because April said, poop.
Who said poop? I know whatever boldness I was feeling last week has left me. Boobs and poop. Real mature. Anyway, so so we want to talk about, it's kind of somewhat of a heavy topic. It shouldn't be. It's stupid that it is a heavy topic, but there are a lot of Christian parents that, especially previously, I feel like hopefully it's getting better, but this is still a very prevalent thing where you have Christian parents, evangelical parents. Like, I know of people who have been completely shunned or kicked out or abandoned by their parents because they came out as gay or trans or bi or whatever the thing. So there is a very real fear, and there's a lot of religious trauma around LGBTQ kids growing up in evangelical homes, or I mean, not just evangelical, a lot of different religions, but it does seem Paul's there. He just ran off. It does seem that there is a lot more just vitriol in evangelical homes. So no matter how advanced the world gets, it just seems like the church is stuck. They are determined to stay where they are, even going backwards. So yeah. So this is a very personal topic for me for several reasons, because one, my brother is gay. So I grew up with him in an evangelical household. And our household was pretty homophobic. And that can be very difficult. And we know like politicians like Ted Cruz have said very homophobic things. That, I think he said things like gay marriage is going to be the end of like Christian rights, which is so stupid. So there's so first of all, how have Christians responded in the past? We know of Christians that kick people out. Conversion therapy is traumatic. So there are kids that are terrified to tell their parents because they don't want to be sent off to conversion therapy, which like the big one, Exodus, shut down, but those conversion therapy places still exist.
Yeah. Go ahead, April.
No,
Sorry.
keep it. No, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah. And I think it is the absolute bigotry that has been on full display from these worldview perspectives, right? Because like you said, it's not just Christianity. There are other worldviews that definitely have a very negative view of folks who are part of the LGBTQIA plus community. And that's, it has been really, really difficult to watch that. And I think, it has gotten progressively worse because of some of the things that we've talked about, right? Like, not that it was ever good. It was never good. It has never gotten to a place of, it's like saying, well, there was a season of, in our country that there wasn't racism. That's not true. Like we have always been racist in America. Yeah. And so, but I think because of Trumpism and because of this empowerment that a lot of these extreme conservative cult right wingers feel, it has ramped up the bigotry and the homophobia and the transphobia, and all of those things have ramped up, especially in the last few years. And so you can only imagine that feels extremely dangerous, right? For not just folks who are adults in that community, but now we're talking about children, and those children have to be scared to death.
Yeah. No, it's terrifying because you hear of the worst case scenario of kids being kicked out literally on the street. Recently in the last year, I talked to a guy who's gay, whose mom is a Christian, and she told him that she wished that she had aborted him as a Christian mom. Yeah. So it's, you would
rather not have your child than you would have a child that's a part of that community. Like, what does that say about you as a parent?
It is so tragic.
That's disturbing.
No, it's super disturbing, but this happens more than I think people realize. Yeah. And so in Christianity with LGBTQ, there are different beliefs when it comes to really homosexuality. The Christian evangelicals lump all of LGBTQ into homosexuality, but there are,
that's exactly right.
Like gender identity is completely different, but it all gets lumped in. So anyway, with gay marriage, with homosexuality, there are basically three beliefs in evangelicalism and Christianity. You have side A, which is completely affirming and supportive, and it's just stupid that you even have to affirm and support who someone is. But you have to take a stand. So we are all side A here. Like,
we love all affirming.
Yes. Yep. And then there's side B, which is that it is not a sin to be gay or to be or to have like same-sex desires, but it is a sin to act out on it.
Right. It's the
It's like a weird loophole. It doesn't really make sense in the context.
Well, you know what their loophole is right. That this comes from that teaching inside the church of, well, you can't control your temptations, but you can control when you stumble into sin. Right. So they're saying that same-sex attraction or the things that, other things inside that community are a temptation, a temptation of your flesh or whatever. Right. But that if you act on that you are now engaging in sin. So that's where that mindset is coming from. And obviously very, very,
right. Well, so
very homophobic as well.
Also, your side B, I feel like, is a little more love the sin, hate the sinner. It's a little more palatable, but it can still be harmful. Now, I do know some side B people that are just choose side B for themselves just because, but I don't think that's any different than a straight person choosing to be celibate for whatever the reason.
Do you feel like, let me ask you this, April, just in full transparency here. Do you feel like that's maybe more dangerous than than those who are like, well, and probably your last one here would be, people who are just absolutely bigoted and hate and completely against, right? Is it more dangerous? Are the side B people more dangerous than the extreme bigot?
So I have conflicting feelings on this. Yes, they are still dangerous and they are still harmful. Where I do feel like there's a need for side B, because I think it is a good, almost like a gateway drug to get to side A. Because I know for me, like your side X people, which is the third one, real quick. Side X are people that think being homosexual is wrong, being gay is wrong, having those attractions are wrong, and need to be almost like exorcised out of you.
Yeah.
Like that. These are the people that believe in conversion therapy. These are people that would promote ex-gays. There's people that claim they're ex-gay. They're not really ex-gay, by the way. They still have attraction. They're just suppressing themselves. But so those are your side X people. Though in some ways it's super harmful, but at least you know what you get with side X. Side B, side B is hard for me because I see people really like they're at least trying. They believe God made them that way. They can celebrate their queerness, but it's still sinful. Like they just believe that God's best sexual ethic is between a man and a woman. So Andrew said it's different though, because side B are celibate because they're told God will hate them if they act out on it. Yeah, that's true about celibacy. So, but I hesitate. So yes, I do think side B is super harmful if I'm being transparent, but I do see how it is beneficial for people to go from side X to side A, because eventually to side A, because for a lot of people that are into like, oh my gosh, it's so sinful, they need to be exercised. It's going to like, there's just very slim chance that they're going to wake up one day and you're going to convince them to be side A.
But I can only imagine, and kind of to Andrew's point there, I can only imagine like having somebody who's kind of like on your side, but kind of not. Like that still feels extremely toxic. Like it's kind of it's kind of why I say that the moderate evangelical church is more dangerous than the fundamentalist one. Right. Because people can get really hurt because they think they're accepted the way they are. True. And then all of a sudden it's a flip switch, right? Of like, it's like, no, it's cool. We just want you to be celibate though. Right. Like you can be you, but just don't be you. Yeah. Right. And that feels even more dangerous to me because what can happen is like, oh, this person's affirming me. Oh, this person's affirming me. And then all of a sudden it changes. And when it changes, now you've built relationship. Now you've built connection. Now you've built, these things that if somebody's just a bigot, you would have never done that. Right. So it's like, I'm not going to walk into Westboro Baptist Church and be shocked that they're homophobic. Like it's just not going to be a thing. But if I walk into a church, it's like, oh, just come as you are. Like we love everybody. We love you just the way you are, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, then they get me down the road. They're discipling me, right? They're discipling me, which just means they're grooming me to change. So then what's happening is they're saying, oh, you need to now that we love you, now that you love us, like you just need to be this completely different person and ignore this whole part of yourself. Right. So that in my opinion feels way more dangerous. And it is a huge pet peeve of mine. And I'm sorry if like I got on this, but like, that is a huge pet peeve of mine. Like piss or get off the pot, I guess is what I'm saying. It's like, I don't like this fence riding thing. And to be perfectly transparent, you voted for Cruz earlier. I was sadly that person for far too long. And I owe my brothers and my sisters and my friends inside of the LGBTQIA plus community a major apology because of my shortcomings. I want to say that I'm sorry, that I'm repentant to you, and I love you, and I shouldn't have been that way.
And I hurt a very dear friend of our family that way, thinking, and my beliefs were probably different than what my church beliefs were, but I didn't stand up to my church and say, no, we're not going to be this way. So here we have gay people that we're telling are welcome in our seats in our church, and then we'll have people get up and compare homosexuality. Like, I love all sinners. I love drug addicts.
Right.
I love gay people. And and here's somebody being told, wait, you're comparing me to the drug addict? And it's what we do. You're absolutely right, Jeremy. In some ways, side B is more dangerous because it's inviting and then saying, but we're not going to tell you there's a curtain you cannot go behind that other people around here can.
So I completely agree that side B is very harmful and hurtful, and it is riding the fence, as you said, Jeremy. I do know of side B ministries that are full of gay Christians who have chosen celibacy. The ones that I know now, there are some that are super combative and like will like debate you that you need to be side B, and like screw those guys. But like I do know of a ministry that is side B. They are full of gay Christians who do not debate side A people. They welcome side A people, though they are personally side B. And they hold conferences in churches who are super evangelical and that are side X to just educate them scientifically on what it means to be like that sexuality is a spectrum, that gender identity is a spectrum. And it's just, and they are able to get into churches that to educate people to, with the goal, like for me, the goal is to eventually bring them to side A. But they like, these churches would never have a ministry come in that was side A for these reasons. So it's a long game, and they're not, and I don't, like, for me, the goal is for everyone to be side A. I don't know. I'm convicted because I see them doing some good. Like, I know people that have become affirming because of side B ministries. But I also know, like, people should just be affirming, and it shouldn't take this long.
How are you not
road.
though building a subculture of people when you say these people can marry and have sex? These people can't. I think you are building a substrata. It's no different than telling women you're the same, but just not quite the same. You know, and so I just find it, I get what you're saying, April. I totally get it, but I still believe you're creating a substrata of people that you're us, but you're just not quite us. You're the image of God and everything's beautiful about you, but there is this one thing that you're just not allowed to ever do. And I struggle with it. I
definitely struggle with it too, but it is a way that people can act. Like, before side B ministries, talking about being gay or bisexual was like, oh, immediate conversion therapy, immediate laying on hands. And I even hate I feel like I'm defending them, and that feels really gross because I am not a fan of side B at all. But I've seen people that would not be affirming, or maybe they would be eventually, but would not be affirming now if it wasn't for first being side B. And then that was my journey, and my brother's journey, who's gay. We were side B before we were side A, because of indoctrination. To be clear, it's because of the indoctrination that we are told that being gay is a sin. This is sinful. This is harmful. This will send you to hell. And not only is it a sin, it's kind of like the worst one you can do because of how much evangelicals love to talk about it and the gay agenda and all of this stuff. So it is totally a reaction to indoctrination. If it wasn't for the indoctrination and self-hatred and hatred of gay people, side B would not be necessary. So I totally get that. But because we are indoctrinated, sometimes it just takes that extra step to unlearn, I guess.
I think Andrew asked a really great question in the chat. He's like, talking about some of this stuff, like these ministries and stuff where people have, quote unquote, chosen to be celibate, even though they're same-sex attracted, stuff like that. He asked a question that I was thinking, and it was, do they choose celibacy though, or are they forced to repress their sexuality and their identity because they're being told that this is how you please God? I see exactly what you're saying. And to be perfectly honest, like that was, I just admitted that was my journey too. Right. I was like, I took that step into like, well, I want, you to be who you want to be, but at the same, like you get into that, like that wishy-washy gray space or whatever, where you're trying to please everybody and stuff like that. I just see how much damage and how much damage that has caused and how dangerous it is. And I guess what we should be doing, those of us who are fighting for a new normal inside of, Christian culture or, American Christian culture, is that we should say, no, don't play the fence. Don't tell people to suppress who they are. Cause that's the danger, right? Is like, oh, well, you need to be celibate. Now these people, like, what are they missing in their life? They may be missing a relationship that may fulfill them, right? Like
that's dead on, spot on.
Each one of us we are all married and we have incredible spouses, right? That love us and we love them and it fulfills our lives, right? All of us have kids through that and whatever the case is, like whether it be adopted, whether it be biological, those things fulfill our lives. So the danger, I think, to, kind of try to, encourage the slide or whatever and encourage those side B folks to just keep doing what they're doing. The problem is that then you're suppressing people, and what you're doing is you're taking beautiful things away from them. And so,
well said.
But again, I will say, not done this well. It is a process that I am learning, that I am having to understand. So,
but I want to now encourage people to make the leap without going to side B, because I think we are hurting people by doing it. And, I think even the Bible says God made man in his image, male and female, he made them. To me, the evidence is all over the Bible that gender is more fluid than what we've always been told. And it's time. Right now, I know 3 pastors, 2 are now former, 1 is still pastoring, who have told me, Gen X guys, who have said, I'm gender fluid. And the truth is I always have been, but I knew I had to repress it. I knew I had to shut it down. All 3 of them got married now, are struggling in their marriages. We're setting people up. And I think, like, culture has settled on the homosexual thing, for sure. Like the issue of, are we going to accept gay people or not? And now the next 2 generations are saying, and we're going to take it all on a spectrum of omnisexual, pansexual, asexual. All of these things are now going to be affirmed. But I think we're going to see a lot of Gen Xers in the next 10 years saying, oh yeah, I've always been gender fluid and I need to come out and let the world know. I need to express this so I don't live the rest of my life in hiding and shame like I've done the first however many years of my life. Yeah.
And I think we should give those people a very soft landing for when they come out. Cause it's so hard. It's so hard growing up religious in Christian evangelical circles, knowing something about yourself that would be hated by your peers. And then in turn, hating yourself because you've been told that God hates that. That does lifelong damage to someone's psyche. And the church, I think maybe one reason too why I defend side B is, which I hate side B, to be fair, but I do think I feel guilt that I had to go to side B before I could get to side A, that I couldn't just be side A. Like I regularly struggle with the person that I used to be and why I didn't wake up sooner. So, but I also want to give grace to those that were like me. But it's hard being on this side to not just shake people and being like, just wake up. Just wake up. You can really just love the people. Oh, and we should talk about this because we're going to talk about love the sinner, hate the sin, which is a phrase that a lot of people use when they talk about LGBTQ. And I feel like they only use that in reference to LGBTQ people. And it is such a cop-out.
You rarely hear that about divorced people, don't you?
Oh, yeah. You never hear that about divorce. That is a sin that the church accepts fully because they divorce.
That and affairs are totally cool. Yeah. Like, if you're Greg Locke, you can you can play pickle me, tickle me with your secretary and then marry her later on and all that kind of stuff. That's
when
totally
half of your
cool.
tithers are divorced, your theology has to change.
Ooh.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. But okay, so why is love the sinner, hate the sin? Like, just so stupid. But I mean, I know why I think it's one, it's actually an excuse not to love that person. Two,
Wait. Number one, April, if I can interrupt. Number one is it's not in the fucking Bible. There is no verse in the Bible that says love the sinner, hate the sin.
Right. We're not supposed to hate
in the Bible.
anything. There's nothing in there where there's an instruction for the church to hate anything.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, I interrupted your role there.
No, you're fine.
But number one to me, and I think many evangelicals don't realize this, there is no verse in the Bible that says love the sinner, hate the sin. It is not in the Bible.
Yeah, well, it's in second concussions, I think.
Well, another part of the indoctrination, not just growing up being LGBTQ, but like being friends with LGBTQ people. I remember I was a coworker of mine, when I worked at a gym back in college, was gay. And I like became friends with him, and I didn't try to win him to Jesus because I felt weird about it and really liked him, and he was super cool. And I remember one of my Christian friends being like, "Oh, you're just enabling him. Like, don't you think you should tell him where you stand? Like, like you should love him, but you can't, like, by not telling him that he's going to hell, like you're just supporting his lifestyle, quote unquote, like gross." So like love the sinner, hate the sin is like, it keeps people from actually having relationships with people and just treating people like humans. Like I said this a couple weeks back, but since I stopped trying to be a good Christian and just focus on trying to be a good human, like I'm a better both. And one of the reasons, like, and I had someone ask me like, well, give an example of how trying to be a good Christian made you a bad human. And this is a perfect example, because I believed that being gay was a sin. And so it hindered me from actually having genuine relationships with people who were gay or bi or trans or whatever, because I felt like I had to convert them. I felt like, or honestly, just anyone who wasn't a Christian, because I felt like their blood was going to be on my hands if I didn't convert them. So already our relationship I had an ulterior motive that I didn't want to do. I didn't want to have to witness to this person, but it kept me from genuinely loving them and genuinely seeing them as a human. I saw them as a project.
Mm-hmm.
But that was everybody. That was not just, I mean, like we were taught like, how many, and I said this as a youth pastor, how many of your friends are you passing in the hallway that if they died tonight, they would go to hell? We need to be, witnessing to everybody and, make much of Jesus and like all this stuff. I mean, like everything was a project. Like it was all a project. And it was just about conversions. Like,
I think evangelicals don't know the Bible, by the way. I'm convinced. And so the favorite verse of the Bible is go and sin no more for most evangelicals, right there along with the poor you will always have with you. Those are two of the faves. But that go and sin no more, by the way, as we talked about earlier, is a passage that wasn't in the original text of the Bible. It was put in later, just so everybody knows. But I love to talk about that passage because I love that story of Jesus jumping in between the guys holding the rocks and the woman caught in adultery. And we love the go and sin no more part of it. We forget that he said, go and sin no more after he had first condemned and chased away all her condemners. And then he turned to the woman and said, I don't condemn you.
Neither do I condemn you.
He owned her at that point. And he told her, I declare you completely forgiven and not condemned. And then he said, hey, what if we don't come back here again? What if there's another way to live? But he didn't say, and let's get you in a good accountability group and I'll come back in a month and make sure you're still living a good life. No, he said, you are completely forgiven, completely not condemned. And so therefore you can go and not sin anymore. My forgiveness has set you free. So we totally bastardize and abuse that verse.
Yeah, but the entirety of Scripture is weaponized, bastardized, and abused
For sure.
by radical evangelicals who just want to paint the narrative, right?
Mhm.
So they'll use anything they can get their hands on to manipulate the talking points. And when you start reading Scripture in context, I have often told people you will not be an evangelical and you will not be a Republican if you start reading Scripture in context. Like, it is just not a thing.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
Or
too
just
many.
the teachings of Jesus, the red letters.
I mean, yeah, the teachings of Jesus, but I would say the entirety of Scripture as a whole. Like, if you would read it in historical context, if you would put it in cultural context, if you would put it in
Mhm.
literary context, like who's the writer, what are they really trying to say? Put yourself in the shoes of that
And
time period.
stop treating it literally.
Well, I mean, just why don't we just evaluate it like we
Mhm.
do any other historical document, right? We
Because, by
always,
the way, I think a lot of the heart of this is we are super afraid of sex and sexuality. Somebody, Joy said in the comment, we think God is super afraid of our humanness. But if
Mhm.
you read the
Yeah.
Old Testament, it is a sex-filled book, man. It has got all kinds of weirdo sex stories and things going on in there. So I think God is way less afraid of our sexuality and our gender and our breaking of norms than we are.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that was definitely a really great conversation for sure, and I'm glad that we took some time to address some of those thoughts, and I think we did it in a very fair way this evening. Obviously, I know that some of the news about the Cruz family is what kind of brought this to the forefront, but to be perfectly honest, kids need to be left alone, and so we're not going to get into the pros and cons, the ups and downs of what's happening
I
in Ted Cruz's family.
and I do want to I mentioned that a lot of Christian parents respond poorly, but I do want to say that there are Christian parents that respond well, like those that genuinely love their children. Like, for example, my mom, my mom was side X until my brother came out to her, and she just responded with complete love. There was no condemnation. There was no, and she's now affirming. So I hope that, you know, I just pray whenever a kid does come out in a Christian evangelical family, that it is the turning point for them to actually see gay people as humans and people in the LGBTQ community as humans and not as some, like, sinful demonic person that we're taught. But
Yeah.
there is that hope, because I do think a lot of progressive Christians now, especially like in older generations, are that way because of someone close to them who came out to them as gay.
Oh, go ahead, Paul.
Sorry, Jeremy. The story of the Cheney family and Dick Cheney, the former VP, in a lot of ways, a terrible, horrible person. But if you read their family story, were Christians who knew. Dick's wife said, "We knew where we stood on homosexuality until our daughter told us she was one." When they were confronted with a human being, they had to make a choice to love their daughter or not love their daughter. And to their credit, they chose to love their daughter, even though, and ironically, Liz, the sister, Liz Cheney, the one we all love right now, Liz stood against her, and it broke their relationship for a long time because Liz was running for office, had to be anti-gay and anti-gay marriage. But I do love the story of parents that when they're faced with of, do I love my child or not? Even if they're telling me something this difficult. I love how running in and encountering human beings can change our theology in a big hurry.
Yeah.
If we're open-hearted.
Yeah. Well, let's run to a quick mid-roll, and we're going to wrap the show up. On the other side, we're going to be talking about our favorite vacation spots, and we might have some fun news for y'all. So anyway, stick around. We'll be right back. Are you loving Evangelical-ish? Follow us to catch all the latest content and encouragement. You can check us out on TikTok by following @Evangelical-ish or subscribe on YouTube by searching Evangelical-ish. That's Evangelical with an ISH. And don't forget to catch our live streams each and every single Wednesday night on YouTube at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, and 6 Pacific. And now, back to the Evangelical-ish podcast.
Guys, let me jump in for just a second. I got to run. We had something happen in our kitchen. That's why I left a few minutes ago. But I got to go. I'm sorry to bop out, but this is what happens when you do things from home. So love you all. You guys take it from here. Is that okay?
Yeah. Sounds
good. Take care of your kitchen.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
all I'm seeing is like the episode of The Office where Brian makes his homemade chili, and trips on the way in, and there's just chili everywhere, and he's like wallowing in it, trying to get up. No, not ringing a bell, April.
Did you say on The Office?
Yeah.
Who's Brian on The Office?
Oh, his real name, his name in real life is Brian Bumgardner, Kevin in The Office.
Kevin.
Sorry. Kevin. Yeah. Okay. His name. Sorry. I had just been watching listening to his podcast. His name in real life is Brian, but his name in The Office was Kevin.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. I get the scene now. Yeah. I was like,
sorry. Yes.
Brian. Who's Brian?
Yes. His name in real life is Brian.
Okay.
So anyway. I'm imagining that. Sorry. I thought I had a pop culture one over on you.
You almost did. I didn't. I mean, I didn't connect 2 and 2 together. But anywho.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's fine.
So no, I know. People are like, it's Kevin. I know it's Kevin. Okay. I've only watched the series like 17 times through. But his real name is Brian in real life. So yeah. Anyway. All right. So tonight we want to talk about the hey forever. No, listen, I am a huge Office fan. No, you guys stop. That's enough. Yeah, Kevin Malone. Anyway, now they're gonna make fun of me just because I made an honest mistake.
It's fine. You got to move on.
No, I can't
dust off
do
your
it.
feet.
Dust off
Keep
my
going.
feet. Okay. All right. Anyway, I'm gonna dust my shoulders off. But favorite vacation spot of all time. We were going to talk about that. Paul had to run to address his chili spill in the kitchen, and so anyway. But yes. So, what is your favorite vacation spot of all time?
This is a hard one for me. I mean, vacations? What are those? I don't really go on vacations anymore.
I feel that
since having children. So I'm gonna go really nostalgic.
Okay.
And when I was a kid, I have been to this place 4 times. So like when I was 7, 10, no, 2. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I've been there 4 times in my life. And is in South Africa because my dad was an evangelist, so we went over there often. And it's a place called Sun City, and it is a resort in South Africa, and they have safaris and they have golf courses, and they have this. It's like its own little town, like literally Sun City, but it's all just resort and vacation. And I have not been back in like 20 years, because money and children and all of the things. But I would just say that. What's your favorite vacation?
So I've got I think it would have been pretty open for debate up until probably this past summer. But my wife and I got the chance to go to Jamaica this past summer, and we stayed in Negril, Jamaica, and it was absolutely incredible. Gorgeous ocean, fantastic resort that we got to stay at. And
was it all inclusive?
It was. And so
the way to go.
Yeah, it was absolutely the way to go. So the amount of rum and coke that floweth out of that place was absolutely incredible. But yeah, no, it was an amazing time. We had a really, really fantastic time. Actually, that's where I got my stingray. It was handmade by one of the guys that came around on the beach.
Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah, so he's fancy. And then my favorite meal that I had there was not part of the resort. there was a guy walking up and down the beach holding like live lobsters. And he was like, hey, hey man, you want to hold the lobsters? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I was holding them or whatever. My wife's taking pictures, and he's like, we'll go cook one for you. We'll go cook one for you right over there. And I was like, seriously? And he was like, yeah. I'll come back, $20. And I was like, okay, cool. He was like, so they put some sides with it. They came back. I had cooked they had cooked the lobster that I held, and it was absolutely delicious. Like
Did
as
you
fresh
feel
as it could
bad
possibly
though?
be. No,
I would feel
I'm
bad.
sorry. I got a different view on that kind of stuff. And so
A living creature. To be fair though, I do love eating lobster tail. but I've never held
do you
it
feel
before.
bad though?
I've never held it before I ate it.
I
don't know if I could do that.
I grew up in a family that, like my grandpa, like literally the protein in his freezer did not come from the store, none of it. And so he instilled a lot of that kind of stuff into me. And so I still enjoy hunting, and doing stuff like that, for the sake of, which I know this sounds counterproductive, but there's a ton of studies and there's a lot of conservationists out there that, encourage hunting to help, land areas and stuff like that, and to help populations, and so try to be aware of all that, follow all the rules, and we don't misuse anything. Anything you get, you use.
See, that's okay. I used to hunt back in the day, and I've deconstructed hunting for sport rather.
No, it's not for sport.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm saying like I have problems when it's just for sport. Just
Yeah,
like
no,
trophies.
I'm not on that. Or like Paige Patterson. I don't know if you remember, he was the president of Southwest Baptist Theological Seminary, ran into a bunch of problems and ended up getting fired. But, but he would hunt in Africa for sport and literally had a giraffe head in his office.
That's gross. See, I don't like that.
That's disturbing. And so, yeah.
Sidebar, people are saying I look like I'm in an 80s music video or something.
It does kind of the colors, like the colors.
And my headband. Like, girls just want to have fun. Okay, anyway, moving on. Lori said I should sing that song.
Nice.
We should talk about our like kind of announcement, but not really. And then we should end since we're rambling.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So what we're going to do is we're excited. We're actually going to come to a couple of cities, and we are going to do a live event with y'all. We're going to record a episode of Evangelicalish with you there. We're going to spend some time doing some Q&A after that. We're going to do dinner and hang out with everybody that's there and spend some time.
Details TBD.
Yeah, details to be determined. But here's the part we need your help with. Okay. So we asked earlier, like, hey, if we did something and we came somewhere close to y'all, like what would you, where are some places? The top places that were mentioned, Atlanta, Chicago, and Dallas. Those were the three top places. And so what we're going to do is, yes, I did, Dave. I said a giraffe head, and it was like from the shoulders up. No, freaking creepy. Right next to a hippo mouth. Yeah, the guy's crazy. So anyway, so those are some of the options. And
there's a few other cities that we'll throw in there that had a few votes. And we also recognize that a lot of people listen that aren't in our podcast group. So we're going to put tonight or tomorrow, I'll make a poll in our Facebook podcast group with, I don't know, several cities that you could vote on which city you would attend. Cause that's how we'll figure out, if you're on the West Coast, Cindy just said West Coast, please. Very little people voted for the West Coast. So
yeah, we've got like 2 or 3 for Seattle.
If you are out there, West Coast, you got to let us know.
Yeah.
So if you're not in our Evangelicalish podcast group, you are welcome to join. Just answer a couple questions so that we know you're not a crazy person. And it's on Facebook. It's a private group, so it's safe to talk about all the things. And it's just called Evangelicalish Podcast Group. Or you could leave a comment on our TikTok, our Instagram, Twitter, message us. Just say, we're probably looking at Atlanta, Dallas, Chicago, Nashville, Orlando, Seattle, Los Angeles. Or if there's another big city that we haven't mentioned, I think Philly got a few votes.
Yeah.
Message
Philly
us.
did. Yeah.
Yeah. And so probably in the next few weeks, we'll try to narrow that down and actually put something on the calendar, and it'll be fun.
We would like to here's full transparency. Okay. We would like to hit each region. We would like to go, say to Atlanta and then Dallas, Chicago, Philadelphia, and somewhere on the West Coast, California, Washington, something like that. That would be ideal. But the biggest thing is that is going to depend on, folks signing up and getting involved and those kind of things. So anyway, we want to hear your voice heard so that we can get as many people, because the more people that get involved and say that they're interested and say that they would be, wanting to come, the more stops that we would probably be more comfortable doing. So anyway, I think it'd be a ton of fun, but we would definitely love to hear from y'all for sure.
Yep. So look for that poll in our Facebook group or send us a message and we will figure it out. We're hoping that the dates will be sometime in the spring. I mean, we're in the winter now, so sometime in the spring, possibly early summer if we are just procrastinating. But this year, like in the next several months. So yeah. It'll be good.
We're super excited about it. We want to come on the road and see all of you and meet everyone and finally get to, barring any major catastrophes with COVID, we'd like to hug your neck and tell you thank you for all the support and the love, because we couldn't do it without you. So that's about it. So do us a favor. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcasting platform. Join the Facebook group. It's just the Evangelicalish podcast group. You can join it. There's like 2 questions. It's a private group just to keep it safe. Please answer the questions to get into the group. It's not hard. It's just we want to make sure that people are wanting to be a part of that legitimately. So anyway, definitely do that. But otherwise, fantastic conversation as always tonight. For Paul and April, I'm Jeremy. We love y'all. We will see you next week.